So this is a verse from the Therigatha. I think it's 16.5 verses of 16, called Malankya Putta, arahant Malankya Putta. Having seen sights, recollectedness is forgotten when attending to the sign of the beloved. He experiences an impassioned mind and he keeps on holding. For him, with the arising of sights, various feelings increase. For him, the mind is spoiled by desire and irritation. Accumulating suffering in this way, Nibbana is said to be far away. Then it goes on, having heard a sound, smelled a smell, tasted a taste, touched a touch, and having known a phenomenon. Recollectedness is forgotten when attending to the sign of the beloved. 804.
Is this your translation? Nice. So, what do you think? Having seen sights, well, first of all, who do you think this applies to? This instruction.
Yes, I was thinking it might apply to some noble disciple who's not practicing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he's losing that.
Yeah, he's not maintaining it
the right recollection.
Yeah. That's why for him Nibbana is far away, but he still can get Nibbana if he were to do it rightly. For Puthujjana, Nibbana it's invisible, so it's not even far away, it's just not there.
Recollectedness is forgotten.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and that also implies that he knows what the recollectedness is, what the right sati is. Yeah. So, and how about you when he says various feelings increase? Increasing what?
Increasing the pressure.
Yeah, and how is the pressure felt? Can you feel the pressure of the feeling in the past?
That's felt presently.
Exactly.
But
so increasing in the present, feelings increase in the presence.
In the pressure.
Yeah, it's not like some. It is pressure. You're always pressured by the feeling, but I think it's even more accurate to say that they increase in the presence, in how much they're present for you, because people tend to already interpret feelings as kind of energies and sensations, and saying them increase means that the energetic pull of your feeling might be increasing or something, which is kind of true, but really they're increasing in their presence. How much of that presence is over you, and the more you give in, the more it becomes.
Could you think of it in terms of the arrow sutta, with the second arrow?
Well, no, because this is for an Arya. He doesn't get the second arrow.
No, he doesn't. No, yeah.
No, it's literally like feelings will increase when you attend to them wrongly, as in they will be they will have more of their presence in that pulling wrong manner, because again you're scratching your itch. If you're not scratching it, the itch will start to fade. You start scratching it, it starts to itch more. It's increasing in presence of the itch. That's it. There's nothing like future repercussions of your wrong attending now and accumulation of this. No, it's literally you're doing it wrongly, you're going to feel it more. That's it.
So feelings are more of an issue, more prominent.
Exactly. More pressing, more pressuring, more of a burden. Yeah, because you're scratching them and that's making things worse. You stop scratching, they're going to get better. But this sutta, these verses say exactly that. By wrongly attending to it, they increase.
Wrongly attending to the beloved.
To the arising of the sights. Yeah, losing the context, losing perspective on account of the seen. Losing perspective on account of the heard.
So one looks at the attractive part
Well, it happens before you look at the attractive. When the attractive comes within your range, you have already picked the sign of the attractive, and then you choose to look. Like you wouldn't, you cannot look at the attractive accidentally, because it's not attractive at that time yet. You can look at accidentally at something, then you realize it was attractive, and then that's the time when you have a choice. Shall I look again, or have a better look, or shall I refrain from looking? And that's what this refers to. So you choose then to attend wrongly, as in you choose to look again. Although you know that now you perceive it as attractive. So the context of attractiveness has arisen in the mind, and now you act out of it, and that's your responsibility. And for as long as you keep doing that, the context of attractiveness will remain lingering around you, because you're maintaining it.
And your mind will continue to.
And your mind will be far away from Nibbana.
And so it said recollectedness is forgotten. Rather than just being mindfulness, just general mindfulness. Can we say it's being recollecting a particular thing, like maybe in this case body?
Sure, I see. It's not actually particular in that sense.
No, not particular.
I see what you mean.
Rather than just say, I'm just being mindful.
Oh, yes, of course. No, there always has to be a reference point
That's
for
what I mean.
recollectedness.
That's what I mean, yeah.
I'm just mindful of here and now, present
yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not mindful of anything.
Yeah. But in this case, it seems, because he's talking about the senses.
So then, yeah, sure. And obviously the chief mindfulness is mindfulness of the body.
Yeah.
All the other mindfulness are within or stand in place for the mindfulness of the body. That's kind of the only mindfulness you can do. Even mindfulness of the thought, again, it would reveal the body being there as a necessary basis.
Yeah.
So it would have to be there, yeah. So that's what I mean, like it's losing the context in regard to the seen, heard, smell, taste, touch, and so on. The context being the body given there beforehand as a container for these things to be. So there is no problem in things presenting themselves as attractive or as repulsive if you see it correctly on the basis of the body. You see that on the basis of the body that's not mine, things present themselves as attractive, as repulsive, as neutral, which are equally not mine because they're on the basis of the body. They cannot be in me. You forgetting the basis of the body, you and attractive, or you and repulsive, or you and neutral form a relationship. And even that's not necessary. I mean, that's a problem, but that's a problem that you have to basically uproot. You can't just say no to it and stop doing that, because that's still not your doing. But once you form the relationship with the scene on account of its attraction or on account of its repulsiveness, like, oh, I hate that, that's when you choose then to act out of that relationship, that's how you perpetuate the problem and fuel it and make the feelings increase as a result of it. So next time, the pressure relationship will be even heavier on you.
Because it's harder to bear.
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's harder to bear.
So feelings become harder to bear.
Yeah.
As opposed to
because you were giving in to them.
If you didn't, they weren't.
They will be less and less hard to bear. Yeah, less burdensome.
So they would. So then, as you were saying earlier, an arahant would not be burdened by feeling.
And that's what it said. He wouldn't feel anything.
He wouldn't feel.
Feeling is the burden. There's not like some feelings are burden. No, feeling in its nature is a burden. Feeling towards attractive, feeling towards repulsive, feeling towards neutral. It's a burden either way.
Because you are subjected to them.
Yeah. Because it's upon you.
So then you don't get, as an arahant, you wouldn't be subjected anymore.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have any pressure. So what then happens to feeling? As an aggregate, what is the feeling? To you?
Well, it's that which is not for Putujana. You cannot possibly compare the aggregate of feeling for an arahant and for Putujana from an impersonal standpoint. You're either closer to one or the other. So the aggregate of feeling for an arahant is the same what it is for Putujana. Something out there that's not felt nor can it be owned. However, Putujana is pressured by that thing out there which cannot be felt nor owned. And because of that pressure, he feels it, he owns it. So the aggregate of feeling for an arahant is what aggregate of feeling is. It's not the aggregate of putujana, that's the actual aggregate of feeling. It's a mistake in regard to the aggregates. Hence the state of putujana. So it's not that you, like in practice, you have to start from putujana to an arahant, but if you want to look theoretically on the structure, it's the structure of the arahant's aggregates, that's what's first. That has always been like that. That's why Buddha said, Upadana is not in the aggregates, cannot take the aggregates. It's not part of them, and it's not away from them either. It's desire and lust in regard to the aggregates, including the aggregate feeling, that these aggregates, that the Upadana is there, that your assumption, your attachment is there.
I was thinking that.
So really you should ask, what is the aggregate of feeling for a putujana? Clarify that, and you'll have the aggregate of an arahant. Not like, let me get to the theoretical point of aggregate for an arahant, because you'll be arriving at it through being subjected to the pressure of the feeling that you already are, which means you won't be arriving at it correctly.
Because to talk about two different types of aggregates, that's actually what the Buddha does. He says there's the khandhas and there's the upadana khandha, pancha upadana khandha.
But I don't want to do that without qualifying it,
Right.
because it's already misunderstood enough.
Right.
Because many people would think, I'm a putujana, I read the sutta and pertains to an arahant, and I get the idea of it, and that idea stands for that which arahant is. As in, as a putujana, I understand what the arahant is. And now I just have to adhere to my method or technique of practice and I'll magically arrive at it. No, you cannot understand what an arahant is, which is why you're still putujana. Understanding what an arahant is, you cannot be a putujana. You release the source.
So you have feelings now, and then if you lose the assumption in regard to the feeling now, does that feeling disappear?
No, that's a wrong question, because you don't lose assumption in regard to the feeling. Your assumption is your feeling. There is no feeling left or right from it. So you trying to separate them is impossible. The only way to separate your assumption from your feeling is to become an arahant. So asking them what happens to feeling when my assumption ceases, you cannot conceive for as long as your assumption is still there. Because your feeling is your assumption. Your aggregates are your assumption. That's why it said they're taken up wrongly, but those are the only ones you know. So the same question would be wrong to ask for any aggregate. What happens to consciousness when there is no upadana? Your upadana is your consciousness. Your upadana is pancha upadana khandha.
So when it says feeling cease,
You say upadana ceases. So putujana's feeling, which is feeling of vedana upadana, it completely doesn't exist in an arahant. It has ceased.
but Vedana
It has
it doesn't
ceased.
exist. I mean,
It has ceased. Everything has ceased. The 5 pancha upadana khandha have ceased for an arahant. So it's important to realize that the only way to understand then what's left is to become an arahant. Not to theoretically compare pancha upadana khandha with pancha khandha and then get the idea. I mean, you can get the idea theoretical, but don't confuse it as understanding it for what it is. Because see, it can result in that kind of subtle but yet quite profound and fundamental separation. Upadana and my assumption, Vedana and my assumption in regard to my Vedana. No, your Vedana is your Upadana. Your aggregates are your Upadana. The container for Putujana is Upadana, of everything.
so you can measure your upadana in regard to how you feel.
Well, you can measure the amount of your Upadana in regard to how much you're liable to suffer.
So, but if feelings of, if you are pressured by
Sure,
feeling,
that means the amount of pressure,
means
yes. Yeah.
there is
Yeah, you can
upadana.
say that. Yeah.
So not being pressured at all.
Not being pressured at all means not holding it up. There's no Upadana there.
Which you could also say is not feeling.
It's not felt, exactly. So that's what I mean. The feeling you feel is the feeling of Upadana. So how can there be a feeling without being felt? You become an arahant, that's how.
So when an Arya Savaka says it there quite explicitly, when an Arya Savaka, when a noble disciple practices, he exhausts feeling. He doesn't accumulate feeling,
Yeah.
he exhausts it. He
And
wipes it
accumulate
away.
means he doesn't increase through scratching carelessly it will itch more, so he's not accumulating that. He stops scratching, stops itching, heals, and then it does not itch at all. There is nothing felt anymore.
So I'll read that verse. So he is not impassioned by sights. Having seen a sight, he is recollected.
Yeah, having seen a sight, the context remains imperturbed. So he does not lose the sight of the body being the container of whatever's seen, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, doesn't matter. So he doesn't forsake that image for going towards the pleasant sight, which is what definition of passion is.
He experiences a dispassionate mind, and he doesn't keep on holding.
Because it's impossible to hold in the first place, and he does not forget that.
For one, seeing a sight like this, while also practicing feeling, is exhausted, not accumulated. He lives like this, recollected.
Yeah. Presence of the feeling fades away, does not increase. Until it fades away completely, you can say it's ceased, and it cannot arise.
He says, diminishing suffering in this way, Nibbana is said to be near.
Yeah.
Or said to be near. So, he diminishes
his liability to suffering.
So all he's doing, and Aryan is doing, is just keeping that recollection and
restraining. If there are things, if there are things they're sort of trying to induce the scratch, all he needs to do is restrain. Because restraint for him would mean maintenance of the right context that he has obtained by becoming a Sotapanna. That's why for Puthujjana you need a bit more than to just, you need to restrain, is a necessary basis, but you also need to then understand what the right context is. Otherwise you can restrain as much as you want, but you still remain holding on to the wrong context, not realizing the relationship that whatever's seen is within the necessary base of the body that you are mindful of. And including your own sense of self is within the necessary base of the body that you are mindful of. So there is no external to the necessary base of the body that you are recollecting correctly. Fully dwell on that as a Puthujjana, that there is no external. Once you go through the few pangs of anxiety and fear that you will drown and it will kill you, you get used to it, you stop resisting it, and then you find it liberating. How much it will bother you, that depends how good your sila is established, how much pressure you carry anyway, how many habits of scratching you carry and you have to restrain. So it doesn't need to always be unpleasant, but I think more often than not today, I think it's going to be more unpleasant than not in the beginning. Because more often than not, people are much more into the senses than they used to be. That's the decline. The threshold of your being is already far, far proliferated. Because even in the, as you were speaking earlier, like even the underprivileged in the Western societies are extremely privileged. You don't go hungry or something. You might not be able to get fashionable things and some kind of items of entertainment and whatnot, but far from that you are actually starving or not being able to eat. On the contrary, most people have weight problems, certainly in Western Europe. So it just tells you like where the starting point is. But back in the day, even the affluent people would still worry about, next month the king might come and kill all of my family members and take all of my possessions, and you live that with the back of your mind. And you just have to accept it. And every day has that perspective on it. Or my little mud hut with my 6 children, slightest earthquake, the thing might fall and kill us all at night. And you get used to it, so you don't necessarily feel that kind of intense urgency of it, but it doesn't mean it's not there. It's there, you live under it. And today people don't. You might worry about somebody says something that upsets you and existentially kind of shakes you, but it's far from any actual threat. Because that's the starting point, which means that needs to be undone. And that's what I mean, like in present day, if somebody tries to undo that, it's going to be unpleasant initially, because you're far out there in the senses, depending on constant activity, constant engagement, constant distraction, constant input, constant everything. Because in the same fashion, the more you scratch, the more it will itch. So you got used to the point of scratching at the click of a button, tap on a phone call, company, food, eat 5-6 times a day. Now that becomes norm and necessity. So if you can't sustain that level of engagement, you're going to suffer on account of it. And if you don't go through that suffering of that withdrawal, well, you'll never arrive at this position whereby you can maintain the perspective and then see your choice in choosing to go that way or choosing not to go that way. That's invisible for most people. That's what they say, oh, you know, like sensual desire is just nature, it's just natural, as in it has nothing to do with me. The fact that you can say no to it means it has everything to do with you. Whatever you can say no to, you're responsible for. And so, revise that and see what are the things that I can say no to. So you can't say no to your breathing, to your heart beating, to aging, to getting sick. You can't say no to dying. You can't say no. So that's not new.
Yeah.
You can't say no to hunger, sure. You can literally say no to everything else, which means you're responsible for choosing to do everything else. As simple as that. So then, don't choose based on desire, don't choose based on your will, and don't choose based on desire to distract yourself, need to distract yourself. And then you're getting ready to practice the Dhamma.
So that's what you can say no to.
That's what you're responsible for. You see, you can say no to eating. You can't say no to needing food, but you can say no to needing a certain type of food. Like when you have a choice, you can say no to choosing on account of taste. You can always say no to sexual intercourse. That's why Zananda said in the Sutta, it's not to be done. It must be abandoned. You can say no to acting out of anger. Doesn't matter how angry you get, how upset you are, you choose to act out of it, which means you can say no to it.
Can you say no to feeling?
No, of course not. But you can say no to acting out of feeling, which is how feeling gets maintained and how feeling increases in its presence. So, indirectly, you can say no to all of the 5 aggregates, which is what an arahant is.
Generally, people would think that would be some kind of repression, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
You're not being...
That's what I say, indirectly. You can't repress things indirectly. If you say no to this, that results in something else that you want to result in. Repression is when you're like, no. But yeah, sometimes you need to repress yourself.
Yeah.
You need to suppress your need to scratch like a maniac.
Yeah.
If your arms are itching, you have to stop scratching in order for them to heal. So yeah, by all means, repress yourself.
Repress your anger.
What is better?
Don't act out of it.
So look, and even from the point of view of its repression, so you get angry in one instance, then you act out of it, and then the results of that and harm and whatever else can cause further anger. The other example gets angry, and then he represses it. So which is better overall? Both are affected by anger in the first place. So whether you repress yourself or not makes no difference. Yet the one who is repressed has not caused all this other load of suffering and results and repercussions of his actions.
Then someone say, well, that person who repressed, now they're keeping it in, building it up, and now it's fermenting, and then they're going to go and slaughter 10 people. Because
if they do, it's because they haven't repressed themselves on that occasion, which means they haven't remained true to the principle of repression, as in sense restraint.
Because that's the argument for celibacy, against celibacy. Now you keep it in your sexual desire, you keep it in, and then you go and molest hundreds of children.
Yeah, those are two unrelated things.
Because it's built up.
Yeah. If you choose to go and molest children or do whatever else on account of that's because you chose to not repress yourself anymore. So you cannot say, I chose to not repress myself because of repression. That's a contradiction in terms. Because of repression, you would have stayed repressed. As in, you would have been practicing sense restraint correctly. So you're just weak. You just could not see it through. That's the reason. Your choice.
Yeah, you didn't see that what was causing all that
Yeah, exactly.
anger from
So same, somebody who abstains from scratching their itch then when they give in, they're going to scratch twice as hard. But there's nothing to do with their abstaining. That's to do with their own weakness in regard to their abstaining, to their own loss of perspective in regard to the abstaining. Because if they haven't lost perspective of realizing that the itch will disappear altogether if they see through their non-abstaining from scratching, if they haven't lost that sight, they wouldn't have given in. So if you want to say the direct reason for molesting or doing crazy stuff on account of your repression, it's you losing perspective on account of your repression, not the repression. Again, it's always on you. Doesn't matter how much pressure it's on you to do it. If you can say no to it, you will be responsible for doing it.
Because there's this idea that you angry, and you don't act on it, but then the person goes away, that continues to brood over that whole thing, keeps on thinking about that anger.
So,
but it's not doing anything.
okay. So why, like, see, if that anger if that anger keeps brewing, what was the first point of anger? Your repression or before your repression? Where did the anger originate?
Before repression.
So why do you blame repression for your anger brewing? Can anger brew if it hasn't arisen in the first place? No. Can you repress anger if it hasn't arisen in the first place? No. So your anger brewing is not the result of your repression. Your anger brewing is the result of your anger.
Yeah. So the same thing is there.
Yeah, exactly.
You did repression, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Prevented you from like spilling it out there and affecting further domains as opposed to just your mind. You affected your verbal expression, you affected your physical if you harm somebody.
You're still cultivating the same
It's the same
thing
anger,
you were
yeah.
doing before.
But now at least you have a chance of seeing it. Once you repress your physical output and verbal output of acting out of anger, you have a chance to see that, so it's still in my mind, that same anger that I have restrained. But you blaming restraint for brewing means complete loss of perspective and failing to see that it brews because it was already there before, which is why I practiced restraint in the first place. There's nothing to restrain if the anger doesn't arise.
But then there's repress the anger, and then a person might have a view, well, it's still in me. Now I must still get out another way. I won't act out in this way by fighting, but I'll go get into kickboxing, because that's the healthy way to get out anger.
Right. Well, there is no healthy way of getting it out.
And so you do the kickboxing.
Yeah, well, I think there is the infinite amount of magical connections that people can make if they want to try to avoid the responsibility for the arisen state of mind. So whether it's kickboxing or finger painting or slam poetry, it's your magical belief that connects, this is the outlet of my anger.
Or my sexual desire.
So it's same.
Painting,
Same.
yeah.
You're responsible for it, for whatever you choose to do on account of it. Yeah, finger painting is better than harming somebody physically, but you're still giving in to the need of acting out of anger, which means you're still affected by the anger, which means you're not going to uproot it. So yes, but it is absolutely necessary that wrong view be abandoned. Then these verses we read can start to apply. Then you realize the responsibility is on you, never leaves you, and if you choose to go this direction, feeling will increase in its pressure and presence and burden. If you choose to not go that direction, feeling will decrease in its pressure, presence and burden.
Which is closer to Nibbana.
Which is what Nibbana will be.
So that's the measurement. I get the feel that the measurement for most people is if I feel good,
Yeah, sure.
Then I am closer to Nibbana.
Sure. It is.
So I'm not suffering anymore.
Practicing well.
I'm comfortable.
Going well.
Yeah. But feelings are increasing in that sense. They're still increasing.
Yeah.
It's just a pleasant feeling.
It's just a pleasant feeling which increases. But it's saying when feelings are exhausted.
Yeah. When nothing's felt. That's what
if
Nibbana
you're feeling great and excited,
that's a problem.
You're far away from Nibbana.
Yeah, it's bigger problem than suffering. As the Sutta says, he regards pain as a dart,
yes.
and pleasure as a deadly arrow.
Well, pleasure is pain.
Pleasure is pain, and pain is a deadly arrow.
Yeah, as an abyss or something.
Yeah, so
pain is the abyss.
So pain is even worse, obviously pain, but pleasure it's like the pain. So you need to regard that also as a dangerous and deadly in the same sense.
So nothing is felt.
Yeah.
For the arahant.
So the measure of your progress is the measure of the extent of how much you're not liable to feelings at all.
Yeah, and he says he describes that as
How much less you feel on account of things.
He describes that nothing being felt as being pleasant.
Yeah, that's pleasant in its own regard.
So that's a different kind of.
Well, that's the
thing.
type of pleasure you can understand by not feeling anything. Not by through feeling this pleasure I get to understand what pleasure or non-feeling is. That is impossible.
Because when you read that, he doesn't feel anything. Nothing is felt. Some people say, well, that's just depression.
For a Putujana it is. Because for him, feeling is his existence. Feeling is his life. That's why they would freak out when the Buddha would describe Nibbana and they would understand what it is. And they say, well, they will kill us, they will crush us, they will destroy me. I will not be. So again, you have a choice.
Yeah, I think, well...
You can stay on the level of existence that you got accustomed to, but you can't complain then. When things don't go your way, when other people upset you, when you lose the loved ones, when you start losing your own health, life, youth, everything else, it's on you. You chose to stay where these things apply. You chose to hold on to it by constantly refusing to give up scratching of your itch. That's why beings are the owners of their actions. Choices you make, they cannot possibly be someone else's, the result of those things. So if people are born here or reborn elsewhere or reappear somewhere else, it's simply because of the choices they made. And they continue to make. So when some of these people say, oh, you're lucky to be a monk. Why? For choosing to be a monk?
Yeah.
Well, I'm lucky in as much I'm still alive. That's as far as the luck goes. But I chose to be a monk. I made the effort to be a monk. So if you're not a monk, that's on you. Oh, but I have family. Has the family been thrown upon you? Or have you produced it? Through sexual intercourse? Through indulgence? Oh, so you're fully responsible for the things you could have said no. Now you have a burden to wait. Yeah, sure. So now you can't because of what you chose to do. So if you cannot give up the life and you want to give it up, whose fault is it? Your own fault.
There is some.
So think wisely before you act. It's never too late to start practicing that principle.
There's a payment you must make. If you want Nibbana, you have to. You can't just get it for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just because you think you're a good person.
Well, you know that thing that people quote Ajahn Chah. It's quite accurate what he said. He said, if you give up a little, Ajahn Chah said that. If you give up little, you get a little bit of peace. If you give up a lot, you get a lot peace. If you give up everything, you get the ultimate peace, literally. It's so, having things and peace are mutually exclusive. Having things as in internally regarding them as yours, dear, beloved, and so on. Having right to them, I'm fully entitled to possess this, and so on. So giving up the ownership of things, to that extent, you're experiencing peace.
You don't want the bad feelings, but you want the good feelings. And there's this so normally there's a constant trying to get away from that and just feel good, but you're just playing this.
Exactly, it's a very clever trap that Mara sets up, because see, you think you're making progress by avoiding the painful feeling on account of pleasant feeling, but you fail to see that either way you remain bound by the feelings, and that's what Mara wants. He doesn't care whether you suffer or you're pleasant, as long as you don't say no to feelings, as long as you don't step outside of his reach and his domain. So that's why whether you act out of pleasant feeling or unpleasant feeling, if you keep acting out of the pressure of the feeling, whatever the feeling is, means you will suffer and you will be bound by that. So you can't have Nibbana. You want a peace.